Ahoy everyone, I am Captain Sawyer and you are part of my pirate crew. Can I get an aye Captain? Aye. And together we're about to explore Deck of Delirium, a game about sanity, sea monsters, and scallywags. So it is a fast-paced, easy to pick up, but hard to put down, pirate-themed deck-building card game with a comedic tone to it. So it's heavily system-driven with connected cards and abilities. The core loop will go as follows. Players will pick a captain, build their deck around this captain, fight on the open ocean, and gain glory, treasure, and emotional breakthroughs. So, for example, you can pick Captain Adad, a captain who took up pirating to get closer to his kids. Or you can pick Captain Kibble, a cat pirate who's looking for the biggest piece of seafood in the ocean. Or you can even pick David Jones, Davy Jones's kid, who's battling nepotism on the 7 seas. So after you pick your captain, you'll fill out the rest of your deck with 2 different card types. Crew, which are troops that you can summon during combat, and orders, which are instant cast cards that can buff your crew or deal damage to your enemies. So the combat loop then goes, players will gain an insanity point and draw a card. They will summon their crew and give orders, deal damage to enemy cards, and then enemies will have their actions. So as you can see here, or it's hidden by the taskbar down here, our player pirate goes a little bit insane. They can make bigger moves and summon even more twisted creatures. So they decide to summon a pirate. As this pirate's just been summoned to the deck, they have seasickness and cannot attack this turn. But our player can use the remainder of their insanity to cast a cannon order to target this tentacle. If players do not clear the entirety of the field before they reach 10 insanity points, they will go insane, taking the remainder of the damage that's left on the field and mutating enemy and player cards for the rest of their playthrough. This will make the game harder in the weirdest ways imaginable. So why do I want to make this game? I'm a huge fan of card games. There hasn't been one that I haven't liked that I found. I used to make YouTube videos about Pokemon cards as a kid. And I really like the design challenge of interconnected cards and abilities, as well as the comedic tone. I think it makes this game really unique. I think we'll probably need a team around 4 or 5 people focused on system and art production. We'll use Unity to get it done, and we'll focus on making the drafting system, combat AI, and art production at the beginning to have a first captain adventure done by Vertical Slice. So my pirate crew, if you're ready to play, can I hear another aye captain? Aye.
So have you looked at things like Tabletop Simulator or the other ones that basically simulate doing like a digital board game kind of a thing or a digital card game?
Yeah, I've played some of those. So the question was, have you done Tabletop Simulator or whatever? I've played some of those. We've had some paper prototype stuff done. So yeah, I've played some of those stuff. Ben.
In terms of scope, how big is your card pool looking like?
So the question was, in terms of scope, how big is the card pool? So for each captain, we're probably going to look around 50 cards per captain. Each deck will be probably 15 to 20 of those cards that they'll pick at the beginning of the game. But we can, I think, scope that down in terms of play testing, iteration, and such.
It's a PvP game. Am I playing against another player, or are you building like a series of monsters that I'm fighting and those are different levels?
So it would be a series of monsters, and you'll like kind of build up on that deck with treasure cards. So it is strictly PvE right now. I think PvP would be a little out of scope, although it is kind of my favorite genre of card games. It's kind of player versus player, but it might be a little bit out of scope as of now.
So for a PvE card game where you will be deck building, how are you going to make the player decisions more meaningful as opposed to just like playing cards on curve with the most optimal damage outputs?
So the question was, how do you make player actions meaningful during combat? I think adding the deck building aspect to it builds like your deck around a little bit of randomness, so you can't always have that same curve every time. You might get stuck with a really great card that you really like trying to build up for, but that might hinder your kind of curve as you're building into that. Or maybe you're really afraid of going insane and you want to get the combat done as quick as possible. So I think there'll be interesting ways that players can kind of play their play style on how they want, depending on each how they draft or how they want to handle kind of PvE.
What exactly happens when you go insane?
So when you go insane, you'll take all the damage done that's rest on the field, and then the enemy cards will begin to mutate throughout the playthrough. So if the player is not insane, they will see a tentacle, but if they start going insane, maybe the tentacle will grow eyeballs. And then if they keep going insane, maybe those tentacles with eyeballs, maybe will start wearing glasses or something. And this will kind of lead to new abilities that these cards might have, or make them more dangerous.
Yeah, coming from Zoom, from Arden. Is the insanity a resource like mana is in a game like Hearthstone?
Yeah, exactly. So the question was, is insanity like your resource that you use to play cards? And yeah, that's exactly it. So it'll be these points that you gain every round that you cannot, I mean, based on cards, you might be able to decrease them, but they're kind of what you use to play these monsters or pirate or, you know.
Just in general, once you defeat an enemy, does your insanity goes to zero or starts to zero again, or?
So it'll start at 0 for each combat. So kind of how it will work. Good.
Is there a possibility of like a physical aspect of this game as well, like an actual card game?
As far as now, probably not. I mean, if it gets made, maybe in the future, but as of now, I would like to focus on how to code a card game as well as design an online card game or a digital card game. So. Nathan?
Yeah, so when you describe like enemies taking different actions or even gaining more actions depending on insanity, are enemy actions like a sort of random chance? Well, there's a chance they could do this move or this move, or does the player usually know at the start what the enemy's going to do before they put it on?
So the question is, how do players know what the enemy cards are going to do, or the enemy's actions? Right now, I think how I'm envisioning it is the enemy cards will be kind of tailored to what they are. So an octopus will have tentacle cards, and then those might have different abilities that can affect your cards. Maybe they can grapple around your cards and not allow them to attack on some turns. But I think having that those abilities or those actions be visible to the player is what I'm imagining. Yeah. I think that was it.